Okay, so excuse me. Something very interesting happened today. All right, so I got this temp gun for Harbor Freight. I was checking the temperatures on the header tubes, and number 8 was colder than the rest of them. These would be like 400, 450, something like that. This one would come up to like, after a little while running, it'd come up to 340, something like that. But that one would stay at like in about 160, 170. If I brought the engine speed way up to see how that would affect it, and it brought the tube temperature up, but I think it was just the conducting heat from the rest of the tube, because it got up to about 220, and then after I let the motor relax, it went down. It started going back down. They all started going back down, but that one's really started dropping. So I think it was just conducting it. And I replaced every ignition component I could. I changed spark plugs. I had one that was in the motor before in that specific hole, and so I changed it. Nothing. I changed the plug wire with the different wire I had. Nothing. I changed the cap because I thought maybe there's something wrong with the terminal. Nothing. So I was like, damn. I think maybe I didn't have no compression or something. So I shut it off and I was just looking around. And then I noticed that there is the fitting I use. This hose. Okay, hold on. This is going to be important too. But first, let me show you where that hose goes. This hose goes to the PCV valve. And I noticed that it went right to number 8. And the important thing to note here is that on number 8, the plug was wet. I couldn't tell what it was. I'm pretty sure it's oil. And so I'm looking at the intake manifold. That fitting goes directly to number 8. Right here. Directly number 8 intake valve in number 8 hole. But it's a dual plane. So this plenum is shared with this cylinder and then the 2 center cylinders over there. And they all have one thing in common. I checked right now. The spark plugs were also wet. I've always noticed it on that side especially. I don't know why I never put together that all of them on the same plenum oiling. I guess that just hit me right now. So I was like, okay. I disconnected the cap, or the PCV valve. I put an old spark plug in there and just blocked it off, and the PCV valve was sitting there. And I started the motor. And this distributor's, well, not this distributor specifically, but, well, yes, I guess it is, huh? So this distributor's always done some things very strange. That once it gets warm and it, like, the motor's really relaxed, it starts to, like, whine. And I noticed it was whining. I didn't think anything of it. I just revved it up a little bit. Gave it some engine speed. Let it, because it was starting to miss and stuff like that. And it didn't sound good. So I just revved it up a little bit and let it smooth out. And then I relaxed it until it warmed up. Just kind of babied it. And once I did, I came to check the temperature. And this tube is finally working. This header is finally hot. That means that cylinder is finally working. And it makes more sense now, right? So the 2 cylinder ones are really hot. The 2 center ones over there are really hot. And the 2 back here are really hot. Much hotter than the ones out in front, because this is where the cooling system is. So this temperature there stays a little colder. And I noticed this cylinder was way hotter than this one. So I guess I got what I wanted. But that means there's something going on with the PCV valve. But now the motor's whining a lot. I'm like, man, I don't know what it is. And so I'm like, well, if I increase the engine speed, it'll smooth out. That's how I've always done it. I've always just kind of babied it. But I didn't want to adjust the carburetor. So all I did was move the vacuum advance port, the hose for it. I just moved it from the ported source to the full manifold vacuum source. But before I did that, when I took this cap off here, and when I did that, it smoothed out completely. It was nice. When I plugged it in, it started chirping a little bit again, making that noise. I was like, man, we're moving in the right direction. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was thinking about adding ignition timing in the canister, because I have that little cam in there still that I can adjust it with. But then we put the air cleaner on it, and that smoothed it out a little more. And once I got it all buttoned down, it was idling perfect. I mean, the idle seems a little accelerated, but now all later firing, and it's happy. It sounds happy. Just got to figure out what's going on with that PCV valve. But man, on a mission today. It's like God's directing my hand. Okay.